Grüß, willkommen in einem aufregenden Video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 2 of my Star Trek The Original Series Timeline Analysis series of videos. In this video I'll be covering the Preservers, which saves doomed races and seeds them in safer locations, allowing humanoid life to spread to even more planets. Another theme which is contained in the Star Trek The Original Series is the Preservers. The Preservers were a civilization or race which assisted other life forms who are at the risk of destruction. They are specifically mentioned in only one episode, Series 3, Episode 3, The Paradise Syndrome, the 58th episode filmed, where they were mentioned by name. However, there are many other episodes which seem to imply the existence of the Preservers. In the episode The Paradise Syndrome, Spock says, "Yes, the obelisk is a marker, just as I thought. It was left by a super race known as the Preservers. They pass through the galaxy, rescuing primitive cultures which are in danger of extinction and seeding them, so to speak, where they could live and grow. Who are these Preservers? How many worlds have they affected? When and where were they saving civilizations? And probably more importantly, why were they doing it?" One clue is when we look at what the Preservers did in this specific case described in the same episode, The Paradise Syndrome. McCoy states, "That's probably how the planet has survived all these centuries. The Preservers put an asteroid deflection unit or device on the planet. We know the Preservers placed the deflector on the planet in order to protect it from asteroids. Without it, the inhabitants of the planet probably would have never survived. Thus, we know the Preservers will leave devices behind to protect other races in danger." There is another mystery on this planet in the same episode. The plant life is identical to Earth. Spock indicates it would be highly improbable that it would evolve similarly to Earth in any way. We can infer the Preservers must have done this when they set up the deflector. Before the deflector was installed, this was probably a battered and much more primitive world, which did not resemble current Earth in any way. Then there is another mystery. The inhabitants not only look like American Indians, but Spock says they are American Indians. It's as if the American Indians and other elements of their ecosystem on Earth were taken from Earth and placed on this planet. Why would this be the case? One theory is the Preservers saw the American Indians on Earth during the Ice Age and determined they were under some form of major threat. They then picked up the people under threat and reproduced their world on another planet. They needed to pick a planet with minimal prior life, so they selected an asteroid-battered planet. By stopping the asteroids and terraforming the planet, they created a paradise for the people they saved. The Ice Age ended about 10,000 years ago on Earth, so they may have taken the Indians at the Ice Age peak sometime between 20,000 and 10,000 years ago. This is what Spock said earlier, which was based on the interpretation of the musical language of the Preservers. There is an interesting conversation between McCoy and Spock which brings up the Preservers and actually even possibly the Cedars. McCoy states, "I've always wondered why there's so many humanoids scattered throughout the galaxy," and Spock replies, "So have I. Apparently the Preservers account for a number of them." It should be noted Spock only said a number of them. Not all the humanoids throughout the galaxy were a result of the Preservers. As we've already discussed, the Cedars also had a hand in doing something similar, but for different reasons and a lot longer ago. Something like this occurred in another episode, in this case the episode called The Empath. Kirk did not enjoy himself so much in this episode compared with the previous, but here we have a race which was going to save a civilization which is threatened with a destruction because of a supernova. Unlike the previous episode, in this episode we actually see the aliens and discover their name, which is Vians. While I must admit, in this case the aliens seem to act in a psychopathic manner, they were testing a number of several races to determine which to save, as they could only save one race. Presumably they would have saved everyone if they could. Interestingly, in the script is written, "Two big-headed aliens in silver robes arrived, first cousins to the TOS people by the looks of them." I'm uncertain who wrote this quote, but they do look similar to the Telosian. I'll be coming back to that point later. There is another possible example, in this case in the episode The Apple. Here we have a primitive people and a mechanism which controls the weather and, I presume, provides them with food, in exchange for some of that food being deposited as a sacrifice. Perhaps this is a planet which has very unstable weather patterns which needs to be controlled. As in the Paradise Syndrome, someone from the people have to do something in order to keep the ball rolling. Presumably, if the race, this super race saved, all disappeared, there was no point continuing to deflect asteroids or changing the weather. So maybe this was a mechanism to determine when that occurred and to basically stop doing what they were doing before. The only negative evidence in this episode is the inhabitants are kept in some form of stasis. But then we know the Vians are a bit psychotic and may not care how they ensure the people they save are kept safe, as long as they are safe. This does raise a dark possibility. Perhaps the preservers are preserving races for some other reason. Perhaps they need a pool of races to randomly select individuals for some reason. I have no proof for this, but why are the preservers doing what they are doing? I found a third example, which are the aliens which assisted Gary 7 to stop World War III. Gary 7 lived among these aliens and gained a host of powers from them, both physical and in terms of knowledge. It's implied in the episode that agents of this alien race stopped the civilization at Omicron 4 from destroying itself in a similar way, that is, in a nuclear war. The aliens and their planet, which is identified only as one planet, is hidden. We know it's 1,000 light years away from Earth, or at least that is the location Gary is teleporting from. There's also a little interesting side thought I wanted to raise. We know Gary was sent to Earth to replace the two agents, which were killed in a car accident. If the agents were similar to Gary, it seems unlikely they died in such a mundane manner. Perhaps there was a force out there trying to stop the work of the preservers. I have a theory that Star Trek, the original series timeline, needed World War III to occur. Gary was specifically tasked with stopping World War III, which, if he had succeeded, would have created a new timeline, perhaps the Next Generation timeline. Perhaps this force, trying to stop the aliens behind Gary, was in order to save their timeline. This is all guesswork, but it would certainly make for a good episode or movie. Let's look at a low probability example. Now, this is a wild guess, but the inhabitants of the planet in the episode A Private Little War may well have been placed there by the preservers. I must admit there is no direct evidence of this, and it's based on my own gut feel, but it is a possibility, especially considering there seems to be two races on this planet, which is pretty unusual. Finally, let's look at the alien Kukulkan, which seem to have spent some time on Earth teaching the inhabitants of Central America. While there is no evidence Kukulkan saved anyone, it may be possible considering his interest in primitive alien species. While I can't find other evidence-based examples of the preservers that worked in the script, it's possible that any very human-like race, which is also primitive, may actually have been a candidate for a preserver save mission. In all these examples, we can say the preservers have been around for about, let's say, 100,000 years at most, and are still engaged in saving races right up to the period in the Star Trek 5-year mission. Now let's try and work out where the Vians, if these are the preservers, may have come from and why they are doing what they're doing. The Vians do look like the Telosians, and while it was a comment in the script which got me down this track, I feel it's probably a good theory. Notice I'm not saying it's correct, as when the writer of Star Trek were doing their writing, no one was attempting to create robust and coherent world views. All we can do is present our theories and see if the theories fit all the available facts in the episodes. This analysis is all about theories based on the tidbits of information the writers left, often randomly, in the scripts. We do know the Telosians experienced a war thousands of centuries ago, which we can assume to be 200,000 years ago. Before that, they lived on the surface. Afterwards, they lived underground. If the Telosians had a war, who were they fighting? I expect the Telosians were divided into two alliances and they fought each other. One retreated underground and the other possibly into space. Both factions would have been incredibly weak and few in numbers, which made continuing the war pointless and impossible. They were only interested in survival at this point. It's possible the Telosians who fled into space are the Vians. They rebuilt their civilization and then started saving other races, possibly starting this 100,000 years ago and continuing until the time covered in the 5-year mission of Kirk. Now let's deal with why the preservers are saving other races. We know the Telosians had a virtual zoo in their underground lair. While the two creatures shown do not look like they are an intelligent species, it's difficult to tell. After all, how did they end up in the zoo? The Telosians could have lured other spacecraft to their planet, so there must be some intelligent alien examples in their zoo, possibly. It's also possible these were animals which the Telosians already had and kept them in zoos for 200,000 years. Prior to their retreat underground, they may have had space travel and collecting them, although I suspect this is unlikely for the Telosians that went underground. The best theory is these are native animals from their own planet, and the second best theory is these are the remnants of other spacecraft which were lured to the planet. If we look at the actual creatures in more detail, both creatures do not wear any clothing and really do look more like animals. But putting that to one side, the idea of using other races to do your work is not something which is unusual to this race, that is the Telosians. Could the Vians think the same way? We know the Vians don't save every race they come across. In the Empath, they were very selective. Perhaps they only saved races which were of value to them, or the greatest value to them in some way. If correct, the Vian interest in Earth is a possible worry. It may not be entirely benevolent. As I indicated earlier in this video, I do have a theory that when the Enterprise went back to Earth and intercepted Gary 7, they broke their own timeline and created the next generation timeline, which did not contain a World War III occurring so early. Perhaps if the Enterprise was not there, Gary would have died somewhere. After all, the original two agents sent by the mysterious aliens died in a mundane car accident. Perhaps something is working against Gary 7's aliens, and the Enterprise interfered with this. If the preservers have an ulterior motive, it may not be a good motive, which could be the motive to try and stop them. And so we come to an end of episode 2 of my Star Trek, the original series timeline analysis, in this case covering the preservers. The episode scripts can be found using the URLs shown. Alle guten Dingen, kommen zu einem Ende.